Let's go. Okay, I think we're recording. Hi everyone, welcome to September's Bid Bites, where we'll be focusing on the subject of managing stress. Pippa's very kindly doing the chat room for me and the waiting room. So yeah, thanks for that, Pippa. We've just shared the questions, but I will share them again just for the purposes of the recording. So we've got this one here. So that's the questions just because then it's on the recording. Does anybody want to go first? I will stop sharing in a second, then I'll be able to see everyone's lovely faces. Does anyone want to kick us off?
You want me to do it, Hannah?
Oh, please, thanks. I'll do it if not. Thanks.
So what do I do to prevent unhealthy stress when bidding? Um, all sorts of things. You're right, early planning, time management. Obviously, plans always change. But I think if you give yourself enough float at the end of your program, then all those little things that might go wrong can be allayed because you know you've got the time for them. Um, I suppose just trying not to put too much on my plate and learning to delegate is very key because we are all control freaks and we like to take everything on, don't we? So just learning to kind of delegate the tasks that other people could do just as well as you. Coping mechanisms, um, yes, regular breaks, air is always good, and surprisingly, not eating too much pizza. So I know pizza is synonymous with late night bid rooms. I don't agree with late night bid rooms. I haven't done it for years. I'm not ever prepared to do it again. But B, if you are stressed out and you are busy and you've got lots of things to do, then good nutrition is key. If you start chucking the sugar and the pizza down because you think it'll keep you awake, it won't because you'll have a crash. So good, healthy, whole grain foods and lots of water, which is a bit boring, I know, but it does work. And then my one top tip, I suppose, my top tip for managing that stress is to breathe. So I'm a big advocate of breathing properly, but also when you get into a stressed out state, to actually sit back and maybe do a box breathing, or I don't know if anybody, you probably all know the box breathing, where you breathe in for four slowly, hold for four slowly, breathe out for four slowly, and hold it out for four. And you do that two or three times, and you'll find that your stress levels will automatically come down, and then you can think properly. So that's probably my tip, is to breathe.
Oh, thanks, Pip. That's amazing. Great top tip. Love that one. I've never tried box breathing, but it's one thing that yeah, it's on my list of things to try. I think,
Really good. It's what my daughter did in her exams.
yeah,
Just when you feel yourself getting up to that
yeah.
stage, it just everything just calms down. It's
And I've
beautiful.
definitely I've written
So
about it, so I should probably practice what I preach at some point. But yeah, some of these things that I need to remind myself to do. And yeah, I think you're right. Delegation, it's hard because you obviously want things to be done a certain way, and it is hard to delegate when you have a vision for something, isn't it? And it can be quite stressful. But also similarly, it can take the stress away if then yeah, not quite so much workloads on your plate. So that's good. And yeah, I'm with you on that. Not as much as I love pizza, not eating too much pizza is probably a good idea. So yeah, thanks, Pippa. Um, anyone else want to go next? Anyone got any thoughts on this?
I'll go.
Ah, thanks, Chris.
I'm looking at it from a slightly different angle, and I'm thinking about stress management from an organizational point of view. So I'm saying things like picking the right opportunities, having the chance to say, to do a proper evaluation of an opportunity so you're not running after things that are rubbish. And I'm talking as a person who works as an employed bid person, not as a consultant, but I think it probably possibly applies to everybody. Um, Boundaries. So have conversations with your stakeholders about what you do and what you don't do, and be really clear if somebody is overstepping your boundaries. Because if they're overstepping your boundaries, that is causing stress, and they need not to do that to be able to deal with it. The other thing is asking for help. A bit like you said about delegation, I think there's something slightly different from asking for help when things are really bad and you need some help. So escalation as well as delegation if you can. And then what coping mechanisms, having a group of people that you can talk to and let off steam with in a no holds barred way if you need to, so that you can have those conversations. Sometimes they could be a little bit inappropriate, but you've got to be able to deal with that issue, that dark humor. And my top tip for other people is to think about, is the thing I do with my team is I say, we are not an emergency service. You know, a lot of the behaviors in bidding that cause stress are almost, let's run around with our hair on fire because that makes us feel important. Although, you know, I think some of the time we collude, we enable bad behavior in the organizations that we work in, and we do that because we maybe underestimate our value as the thing that we bring. So we'll help everybody. Well, you can't help everybody. And as somebody who has experienced the really bad end of what happens when you work too much, I know that I won't put my team through that situation. And I'm really clear about, you know, we are not an emergency service. And I think in the old days, when I used to go to APMP meetings, people used to stand up and say, well, it's a badge of honor. How many nights have you worked without sleep? How many, you know, how much time have you done this? How much time have you done that? And they've realized that's an unhealthy way to be. And it needs to stop. So the whole thing about being properly professional and not relying on the bid people to clear up all the mess, that, and knowing our value, that's where a lot of stuff has to start. And that's how I deal with it. And I won't let my team be treated as an emergency service. I'm really clear about that.
That's brilliant, Chris. Thank you. That is so good. That almost needs to be a sort of standalone graphic, doesn't it? We are not emergency service. Totally. Yeah, I totally get that. And yeah, I'm hopefully things are now shifting away from the days where you sort of hear people get up on stage and or talk openly about, you know, all-nighters and all the unhealthy habits and behaviours that can come with bidding. Something that really resonated with me, actually, what you said, Chris, was the boundaries thing. We worked with a new client, Pippa will know this, and Joe will know this. We worked with a new client not long ago, and they wanted to set up a lot of meetings really early in the morning. And I had a bit of a freak out because I was like, oh no, I can't do early in the morning. And it did stress me out a little bit. And as soon as I clarified to them the times I can work and the times I'm available, it was fine. And they were fine with it. But yeah, I think early on, get those boundaries in there and sort of tell them what you're able to do is a good thing. And it just reduces the stress, hopefully. Thanks, Chris. That's brilliant. Anybody else got anything to add or any comments?
Lorna just said she thinks others also underestimate our value. Burnout and stress is not good. She's been there. I think most of us have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I liked Chris's point about it's kind of an organisational thing as opposed to managing it when it happens, but managing it so it doesn't happen.
Yeah, totally. And like Chris said about the right opportunities as well, making sure that it's the right opportunities that have gone for, you know, potentially sort of bid, no bid decisions, that type of thing, really. We've all been there where we've had a client or someone's gone for a bid that they shouldn't have done, which can be quite stressful. So yeah, thank you. Laura Jane, thank you.
So I was going to think more about how we support our people, following on from Chris. I always tend to find that when things are getting a little bit heated, either they've missed a deadline or things are running a bit hard and, you know, all the rest of it. What I tend to find is that the thing that we tend to do as bid managers is we hold things together. So you're right, we're not an emergency service, but I do sometimes think, you know, sometimes you get a reaction from sales, particularly, whereas if we don't do what we need to do, then, you know, the world's going to end. And I think that skill that we have of holding things together and keeping our teams calm and keeping everyone calm and bringing some humor is great. But the thing that I think I'm missing at the minute is who does that for me. So I'm sitting in a room full of incredibly clever people who are all flapping, and, you know, you kind of get that piece back into the room and you get a plan, but there's no one I can sit and go, oh my god, this is just horrendous, because, you know, you're seen as the person who's got a hold all together. Until my other half said to me the other day, we're going on holiday, we're finally having a holiday, and he said, what's going to, while we're away, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And my point was, nobody dies if we don't do our job. So as much as I know we're important, and obviously we've got bills to pay, my key mechanism now for coping with it when it all starts to get too much, or when I've taken on too much of that calming role, is actually nobody dies. You know, somebody might shout at me, and I can live with that. But we are important, but we're not critical. So if it doesn't happen today, it can happen tomorrow. And yes, deadlines are important, but actually, so is the mental health of yourself and the people around you. So if it doesn't happen today, nobody's going to die. So let's just get some perspective sometimes. And that's the thing that's keeping me calmer at the minute, because I don't have that person in the business that I can go to when I'm kind of up to here.
Thank you. That's such a crucial point, actually, isn't it? And I think anyone in a situation where they're holding everything together and supporting everyone and having, just not having that person, can be quite draining and feel quite isolating. And like I say, it's not life or death, is it? It's no one's going to die. It's might lose a contract, but it's or get it in a bit late. Or get the content done later. But that's great.
One elderly wrong. Come back.
Come back. Yeah, exactly. That is definitely a safe space, isn't it, to sort of vent and with the like-minded people. I like the bit as well about the sort of the calmness and the humour and injecting that and sort of keeping everyone level. That's certainly something that does help, doesn't it? But you definitely need that for you as well, because that's a difficult one. Thank you so much for that. Anybody else? You got anything to add? Oh, Joe. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I'll have a go.
Sorry, Sarah. I don't know who was first then. I saw Joe's hand come up though. Sorry, you can get it.
Sarah's next.
Thank you.
So preventing unhealthy stress. I think planning and being organised is probably the best thing to prevent any stress. Time management, things like having a really good bid plan, and also things like the day before making a note of what's coming up the next day. I've always done that in every job I've ever had. I've always gone, right, what's happening tomorrow, and I write it down, and I think, right, okay, because then I can mentally prepare for it. If I know it's going to be a busy day, then you sort of almost like you can preempt it rather than having a nasty surprise in the morning and then panicking. So I think that's quite crucial to preventing stress. And then if I'm in stress, my coping mechanisms are usually things like pet cuddles, so cuddling the dog, or taking her out for a walk. Obviously weather depending. I've been doing a lot of reading and a lot of listening to audiobooks recently, and I think that helps me a little bit. Sometimes in my ears as I'm walking, but sometimes as I'm cooking and stuff, it just takes you away from like the bidding world and work world for a bit, which is quite good, I find. Or even listening to it in the background if you're doing sort of mundane tasks. So if you're not writing and you're not focusing, you can have something on in the background. I think that helps us take the stress levels down a little bit. And then top tip, definitely coffee breaks. Coffee being the optimum kind of word in all of that. Yeah. Ask for help. So if you're struggling, ask for help. And don't shut down, like keep your communications open. I know a lot of people, when they're stressed, they go offline and they don't talk, and they and I think that's so unhealthy, because I just think you can spiral, So I think keeping open communications with people in your team or your bidding team or your peers, whoever, about just what you're going through, and then that way somebody can go, well, actually I can help because I'm quiet, or I can lend a hand or something. And other tools, so things like use your planner, use your SharePoint planner or whatever software you use. Just plan, be organised, and hopefully it will prevent too much stress, because some stress is inevitable and some stress is healthy. But
it is. Thanks. That's when we sort of got taught a lot about stress. It was you need a certain amount of stress, don't you, to get you through. It's when it tips over the edge and when your stress bucket's full or overfilling, that's when it can be a problem, and you then can't think so straightly. Thanks, Joe, for that. I think your tip about the sort of next day thing and really being organised, I think that's something that we can all sort of relate to. And pet cuddles, I can relate to that as well. That's a good one. Having a quick break and having a pet cuddle or just something distracting is always good. Just something to sort of take your mind off it. Pressure good, stress bad. You're right, Sarah, totally. And comms, keeping the communication up. It's when you sort of suffer in silence a little bit, and we're not superhuman, are we? None of us can work miracles. We can work as hard as we physically can sometimes, but we're not miracle workers. Making sure you're talking and keeping the communication up is a great one. Thank you for that one. Sarah, have you still got your hand up, or were you
I took it down, but
I don't know whether you were
I just do want to be weird with my hand, like.
Thanks, Sarah.
Hi everyone. Sorry I missed the beginning. So I'm sure everyone's already said most of the things, but For me, with the stress with bidding, obviously I do the time management, but I think a key part of it is also realizing that things don't go to plan, and every day you've got to have some time for like unexpected things popping up or changes, or you don't get things back. So being a bit flexible in that mindset that actually I might not get everything done today because other things might change. Another thing as well with clients is being quite upfront with what's achievable. So before, I think Chris just said like, taking everything on, but actually I now say like I can do this or that, I have capacity for one or the other, and I pass that back. Someone can make a decision on what's doable. And then the other thing which has really helped me in the past year, I always used to hear that like swallow the frog and get the horrible thing out of the way in the morning. And I absolutely hate it. But actually, I function a lot better getting quick wins out of the way first. So every day I write down everything I want to do. I put that into a category of things that take me less than 5 minutes, things that take me less than 30 minutes, and things that take me over 30 minutes. And then anything under 5 minutes, I just spend like half an hour smashing those out. And I feel like, I've cleared the decks rather than waiting for the end of the day and being like, oh, I still have to do all these little bits and pieces. In terms of like what I do for coping mechanisms, because everything's like email and virtual, I go places where I can't see my phone for my emails essentially. So like I'll go to the cinema, or I'll go to the spa, or I'll go swimming or somewhere where I just do not have access to my phone and to see my emails. And then in terms of top tips, I would say like, just daily planning. Sometimes when it's overwhelming, just work out like what do I have the time to get done today? And if you don't have the time, you've just got to kind of like go, right, well, it's not going to get done, and take the pressure off. And then just tagging on to Pippa's breathing. So I'm also a yoga teacher as part-time. So in terms of breathing, deep belly breathing triggers your parasympathetic nervous system. So you can trick yourself into being calmer by moving your breathing from your chest, which is a stress response, into your lower belly. So if you do big belly breaths, and you can also trigger it from physical stress. So if you're feeling stressed, you can actually squeeze your muscles and release them, and it will trick your brain into thinking that you're going into a relaxed state. So if you need some quick body de-stressors, you can try those tricks. That's my
Thank
input.
you. Love that. That's an amazing tip. And actually, I've done yoga for many years on and off. There's no class near me at the moment, unfortunately, but I always feel, yeah, that is a definite de-stress for me. But yeah, the whole belly breathing thing, that's a great one. Love that. And yeah, tricking your body into thinking you're calmer than you are. That's brilliant. I really, really like your sort of writing the list and the timescales. We did a similar thing as Pipsters. We did have time management training a while ago where you kind of categorize your list of things, but that's brilliant because then that means you can have your little wins and you can tick them off and feel like you're kind of achieving something. And similarly, what you can't fit into the day, then you can then come to terms with the fact that it can be done the next day or the day after. So that's brilliant. Thank you. And yeah, I'm definitely with you with the off-grid thing. That's a really good coping mechanism. I was talking to someone this morning actually, the fact that they go somewhere sort of go away for a night in this particular place that used to have really bad signal, now has got quite good signal, but they're still telling everyone that it's really rubbish signal, so they're still off grid. And I was like, that is great because they don't know any different. It's still, yeah, it's just a place that's off grid. So yeah, thanks, Sarah. That's amazing. Anybody else want to go next? Hi, Isabel, by the way. Anybody else? Hiya.
Daryl's got his hand up, Hannah.
Ah, sorry, Daryl, missed it. That's because there we go. Thanks, Daryl.
Honestly, I've got my hand up like a wally all that time, and
Sorry, Daryl. I didn't see it. Sorry. My bad. Thanks, Daryl.
yeah. So I thought I usually like to go early in these on these bid bites things, because otherwise people say what I want to say, and I was in severe danger of that happening. So preventing stress, I think, is mostly about recognizing what it is, and when it's impacting you. And so I find it useful to differentiate between stress and pressure, which I think Sarah also mentioned in the chat. And for me, usually, not always, but usually, stress is something that other people do to us. It's their expectations that they impose on us that we haven't really kind of signed up to. And pressure is something that we do to ourselves, unless, of course, we're our own bully, in which case, you may well be also putting yourself under stress. And I think it's really important, especially in our profession, to recognise that, because I think a lot of us will thrive under pressure. We do work in an environment where we are both time constrained and task constrained. We have to answer a certain number of questions, and we only have so long to do it. And both of those things are usually immovable. So that tends to be good pressure. And then it's everybody else that puts the stress on us by delivering late, or making us bid things that we know we can't win, which I honestly find the most stressful thing in bidding is just working on something you're never going to win. So recognizing that, I think, is really important, because how you handle those things is completely different. Like many of you, I cope by organizing. And very often, in fact, I do what is essentially pointless organizing. I'm not really making any headway. I'm just organizing things in order to relieve my own pressure or my own stress, and get my head straight about where I'm going, which I find very helpful. I also definitely find it very helpful as a squash player, because when I get very stressed, there's nothing like hitting a little rubber ball as hard as you can. And one of the advantages of that is the ball just doesn't care how hard you hit it; it just bounces back faster. So you can unleash everything on it, which I find is really really helpful and therapeutic. I was also going to mention Thursday Throng as well. That's definitely helped me out at various times in the past. And I think I also find with Thursday Throng, even if you're not stressed, it's quite helpful to go along and be the therapist for everybody else. And sometimes that in itself is quite calming and relaxing, and helps you organize your own thoughts as well. So definitely would recommend that. And then my top tip for managing stress. Thanks, Pippa. Using all the tech, I see.
Yeah, it's what's happened.
My top tip for managing stress for everyone, I think, the biggest thing I would say is learn how to say no. So we have a pressured job. We have deadlines that we have to meet, and we have to be able to say no. We have to be able to say, no, it's not okay for you to deliver late. No, it's not okay for you to give me another bid that we can't win. No, it's not okay to change everything at the last minute just before we submit. I think we are, as a profession, we're quite helpful people. I don't think anyone would be in this profession if we weren't someone who was trying to help the business, and take away a lot of the pressure and stress that other people feel. Ever see a salesperson trying to work on an RFP, and you'll see the pressure that we're really under. So feel confident in yourself to say no, and to turn things down that don't lead you towards your main goal and objective, because otherwise I think we can be the kind of people who take it all on until it wears us down. So that's my tip.
That's a fabulous tip. Thanks, Daryl. That's really, really good. And it's so important. Really, really important. I've written an article actually on the power of saying no. It was probably written more of a socially saying no to things, when you commit to things and you probably shouldn't have done, and then it sort of adds to your stress. But yeah, certainly in a work capacity, it can be a good thing as well, and to sort of tell people when it's not possible. I think what some kind of things sort of really struck a chord was the fact that it was we pressure ourselves and other people put stress upon us. So it's really, really good way of looking at it, I think. Yeah, like you said, unless you bully yourself, of course, which would be quite stressful. And yeah, interesting because, you know, quite often a lot of the stress is preventable when you particularly when you can't win something and it should have been a no bid and it wasn't a no bid, but they expect you to win it anyway. That's definitely, yeah, up there, isn't it, with one of the most stressful things in bidding, certainly. And yeah, squash. I like the squash one. The unleashing all your stress on the squash ball. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Daryl. That's amazing.
Sarah's just shared a really good link to Mind. I've got a
Ah,
wellness action plan sign up. I think you shared that with us in Pipster anyway, haven't you, Hannah?
I
But
have, yeah, in our
really
Pipwell
useful for
thing.
everyone.
Yeah, so just a bit of context actually. I know I've been said about writing articles, but every 3 months I write a internal newsletter called Pickwell, which yeah, and a lot of the Mind resources are fantastic, really, really good. So I sort of try and share as much as I can within that.
Lorna said in the chat that Thursday Throng's good because it lets you know that you aren't on your own.
Yeah.
And then she's gone on to say that she needs to learn to say no. And I think that's a really powerful thing because we're fixers at the end of the day. That's what we do in bidding. We fix things, we make them work. And to say to somebody, no, I'm not going to help you with your problem, actually, it's quite hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks for the love of the name Pitwell. Brilliant. Thank you. Anybody else want to contribute? I think. Oh, I've got another thing come up in the chat there. Can't see anyone else's hands up.
I was going to say that I've just had an experience of the stress. We've just submitted a bid last week, and the deadline was looming. One particular answer was the main answer, worth 10% of the marks, and was the longest by far answer that had to be given, engineering answer. And the chap who was appointed to write it is a well-known deadline junkie and waits until the last moment. So I went into London to meet him weeks before, set up the structure of the answer. He's brilliant and can write it at the top of his head anyway. And we kept asking where he was with it, and he had taken it offline, so he couldn't see it. And it got to 2 days before submission, and everyone's saying, he said, I'll have it tomorrow morning all done. Never did. Eventually, the afternoon before submission, we had to get 2 other brilliant engineers to come in, and they wrote the whole thing in the afternoon. And we submitted the next day. But it was quite stressful for the team not to have such an important, it was quite winnable bid and everything. We had a good thing to say, and we didn't have the main piece the day before. So personally, I quite like the stress. It doesn't worry me. I'm aware of it, and it just, you know, eggs me on and makes me even more brutally prioritizational, if you like. So you think, if we had to submit this right away, what could we get away with? What's the main thing? So I always think like that. If we had to submit straight away, what would I fix first if I had half an hour or something like that? So just go through everything like that. But that's an example of quite extreme team stress.
Yeah.
And there will be probably no consequences for him. And that's the thing we complained about.
Just carry on as usual.
The really escalating it probably wouldn't get him told off or anything. So the bid director is writing to say how disappointed he is that the promises made weren't fulfilled. But other than that, there's probably going to be no, but he's actually going to say something to his line manager, because it should appear in his, what you call a career thing, what do you call it? The reviews.
Yeah, PDRs and things, yeah, should do.
So
Isabel, how did you cope? Because that gets really frustrating and will make you quite angry as a bidding person. and puts a stress on you that it shouldn't. How do you cope with that physical feeling of like, "Ugh"?
I don't get that. I just embrace it. I'm absolutely aware that automatically I go into relax mode. So, okay, what do we need to do? And don't dwell on all the anger bit. There's no point. It's a complete waste of time. You can go and pick it apart afterwards. And we did have a meeting on yesterday in London to say about it. But when you've got limited time and people are working overnight, etc., there's no point because you're just wasting energy. And I always deliberately avoid getting like that. No point. What can we do?
Good skills.
Now?
Yeah. I'm in awe, Isabel. That's great. It's almost channeling it. Don't dwell on it. That's amazing.
Well, you've just got to sort of give it away. If somebody wants to get like that, they can, but you have to look for the way out and the best resolution, or just withdraw the bid. So fix it.
A few things in the chat. Thanks, Isabel. And Joe says another tip is to be honest with what you can achieve. The bid writer should have been honest from the start. Lorna says it's frustrating when you're waiting on others and sometimes they just don't deliver. So you always have to have a plan B. And Daryl says, I used to keep a record of contributors and their delivery. That way I knew exactly who needed which deadline and how much they needed beating. He means encouragement. And Sarah says, I think a key stressor is also that you can't really get final draft submission done too early if you can, as there can be late clarification changes or you're waiting ages for clarification responses. Yes, because a lot of people will wait until the day that the clarification question time is up and then whack in a load. And then those of us that have been really good at getting everything done, haven't we? And then suddenly a week later you get a million changes. It's like, why did we not just wait for those to come back? So and Chris says sometimes we have to be willing to let things fail. I think that's a really good point, Chris, because if things don't fail, people don't realize something's broken, do they? And you can't therefore make it better. And as much as it's hard as fixers to see things fail, sometimes it can be the best thing.
There's a good example of that this morning, Pepper.
Yeah.
So you can talk about that if you want, Joe. No names.
Yeah, obviously not mentioning any names for confidentiality, but we had a client approach us a month ago or so looking for bid writing support, a new client, and a familiar sector, but a new client, so we knew what we were talking about. And we told them what we could do. They went off then to see what budget they could get, and I think they initially agreed 5K, which I think we kind of equated to a timescale, and then said, well, we can't do everything in that budget, but we can do this. So we said we'd agreed a plan. And now we're 3 days away from submission. And they said, a few weeks ago, they said, that's fine. We'll just get you to do some reviews at the end because we can't afford for you to do all the writing. So today they said to us, yes, you can review everything. We've gone there to review it. And it's utter rubbish. And they haven't answered the question. They haven't done. And there's some answers, there's no content at all. And it's just awful. We feel awful because and one of us has had to go back to them to say, you will not win with what you've got. You're better off just not doing anything. Pay us what we've done so far and minimize the pain. But it leaves you with a feeling of frustration and anger and guilt and could I have done more and stress. It does make you feel stressed because you feel like you've not failed, but part of you feels like it's failed or the bid's failed.
So that's the first stage of you training your customer, isn't it?
Yeah, no, this is a huge lessons learned for them, but they've not responded to the email that we've sent to say this is what we think. So it's very hard to know how they'll react to it. So, but yeah, it's quite a stressful situation because we've not got the time or the capacity to rewrite everything by Friday. We just haven't. It's like one word.
They don't have the budget because they won't spend the money. So
won't spend the money. Yeah.
I haven't got involved in this one really, but I wholeheartedly agree with the others of what they've been doing with them because they've been very clear from the start what's needed, what the time needed to put together a good submission, and they haven't been allowed it. And now they've seen what's left. It's just So hopefully the client will realise the error of their ways and realise that they need to put the time and effort in to win these things. The worst thing that would happen is if they actually put in what they've got and they do win it.
Yeah, that would be the worst thing.
But the worst thing really is that they're a local contractor with a bid that they wanted to, must win, and would have been an absolute game changer for them. And yet they haven't had the foresight to think what this investment up front now would mean later. And that's the stressful thing, is like you really want to drum it into them that actually you spend the money with us now, but you could win this contract and it could give you millions of revenue in the next 3 years. And yeah, it's just that's stressful as well, because we know they're not going to get another good opportunity like that. It's just not going to happen on their doorstep.
You should write it up into a case study for future new
Yeah.
clients.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what not to
absolutely.
do.
Yeah, good
And
idea.
the other thing, that one of the good stress relievers has been a WhatsApp group between the writers going, "Rah!" and honestly, if you can get it all out in your WhatsApp group, then you yeah, it just helps. It's another good stress reliever to
Yeah,
be able to talk frankly, isn't it?
that's a good tip, that one. That's a really good. I think with that one, Joe, all you can say with that one is you tried. You tried to tell them, you've done everything right. They decided not to listen. You tried. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Thanks, Isabel. I think the phrases or the words of the day, definitely a deadline junkie. I think that's definitely, I like that. Like that terminology. And yeah, I think people put it in the chat actually. I think it flashed up a second ago or earlier, about working better under pressure. And I know when I was doing my A levels, I'd always work better just before deadline. You sort of step up a gear. You've got this sort of amazing thing that happens. I don't know if it happens to everyone, but definitely to me, where you just end up writing the best stuff ever because you're under pressure. Same with exams, actually. I know I was always better in exams, which I know not everyone can say, but yeah, sometimes it's just the way we're made, isn't it? We can just sort of pull it out the bag just before, which can be stressful if you haven't got enough time to do everything like formatting and all the nice things, and it's not a great way to work. But yeah, certainly I've got this amazing ability to write hundreds and hundreds of words just before deadline. So yeah,
Hannah, we haven't heard your answers to the
I
questions
know.
yet.
I was just thinking. Thanks for. I was
I
just
was just
thinking
going
that.
to say, though, just in answer to Chris's comment in the chat earlier about my squash racket. This racket,
Has that just happened?
it was a little while ago, but I just kind of I kept it because I've never broken a squash racket in 3 places before.
That's been used on several bid contributors, isn't it?
It should be, shouldn't it? I should just hang it above my desk as this is what happens to people who annoy me.
Yes. Then they'll be scared and afraid not to upset you. I would have liked to have used a picture of that for this session actually, rather than the man with the hand in his head. I think that would have been yeah, that would have been good.
You need to put it behind you, Daryl, on your
Yeah.
so like when you've got the video angle of your bookcase. So if you've got it just on the wall behind you, you can just every now and again just point to it.
This is what happens.
This is
Yeah,
what
there's a little
happens.
space there to the left. Yeah, I like it.
Oh,
Mine
I
then.
can
So
send you a picture, Hannah, if you want it.
yeah, send me a picture. That'd be great. I like it. Thanks, Daryl. We'll bring it on Friday. That's a bit much, actually. Okay, mine. So yeah, mine. What do I do to prevent unhealthy stress? So I think the sort of time management and the really getting your head around sort of starting your day, writing what you have to do that day, a bit like Sarah does, probably in a slightly different way, but really writing down all those tasks you've got to do, try and break them down into some sort of manageable pieces, and then working out. It has to be bid plan. I think my bid plan, which I do on a spreadsheet for every bid, multiple tabs. It evolves every time I do a bid. So if I find something that really works for one bid, I then adopt it for the next one. And if I've got everything in one place, particularly for things like kickoffs and reviews with clients, I can find information quite quickly, and I just feel I'm a bit more organised that way. I find so that's kind of preventative things, coping mechanisms. Yeah, I find I think with Joe sort of maybe having a break, going to take the dog for a walk, that type of thing. Just sort of taking 5. As much as I do find it hard taking a break when you're mid-flow sometimes, you kind of have to make yourself sometimes, don't you? I think for me, I have since Christmas I've been getting back into a lot more sort of gym sessions and strength training sessions and sort of HIIT classes and that type of thing. That for me, where I completely switch off, all I'm focusing on is probably the pain of the exercise I'm doing because it's quite intense. That for me is a real sort of coping mechanism. And actually, I have found myself, even when I've got a deadline, I will still go to the gym. because I will fit that into my day. That is my kind of thing, and it's a bit non-negotiable. So that's one thing I've done differently this year to other years, actually, is the fact that I will carry on with anything like that I've planned in the diary. And yeah, top tip, I would say probably most of the things have already been said, actually, but I think a bit like what Pippa said, sort of healthy eating, keeping fueled, keeping hydrated, and yeah, not eating too much rubbish, really. Just making sure your diet's right, and just sort of trying to keep that focus and not having those energy slumps, because I don't think that really helps stressful periods. So yeah, so that's mine. Thank you, everyone. I think we're almost all spoken, haven't we? I think. How long have we got? 20 past. Should we just carry on to discussion, people, do you think? Or do you think we should stop recording?
Carry on having a general discussion
Yeah,
about
that's cool.
stress and pressure and life as big people. And
anyone else got any sort of anecdotes or any comments?
Well, humor, I would say,
Humour.
is really important to be able to use it either obviously appropriately, but sometimes not, but in the right place with the right
Yes.
people. But if you can find some humor in a situation, or not just humor, maybe the bizarre. Look at a very bizarre video or of an animal doing something crazy, or read a chapter of a book that's a little bit out there. Just something that takes you away from in your brain. And the other thing is the technique of going out and physically going outside and doing 3 things that you can see, 3 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can smell, and reconnect your body with your mind, because sometimes we completely go out of our bodies and that spirals out of control. So get back in connection with your body. That really helps.
Yes, a great one, actually.
And talking helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, talking. I think so. Humour. We've got we're a lover of a GIF, aren't we, in Pipster? We do, like, we've got our very sort of, not formal, but we've got our business WhatsApp group, but we have also got a bit of a social group as well. So we quite often, something that's funny, or a funny GIF, or just a funny clip of something, that kind of keeps us going, I think, quite a lot of the time. Yeah, when we try and share things, that's always a good one. But yeah, humour in the right place, George, definitely. Sorry, Chris.
we had a good one today, because obviously today was about stress. And I don't know if anybody has seen Ice Age, but when the little squirrel with his nut, and then he's on the side of the thing and the water starts coming through, and he's trying to stop the water from through, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty much what we're talking about.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it.
And has anybody seen the Garfield cartoon that says, I never get stress, I'm a carrier?
Oh,
No.
I haven't, no.
I'll have to find that out for the article.
Yes. That'd be good to put that in there. I have to dig it out. Thanks, Chris.
You can all come off your mute if you want for this last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
For all, yeah. I like to see the fact that everybody's smiling now. So, whatever, I think we've had an hour of sorry?
Being on mute was stressing me out.
Was it?
I'm glad we can de-stress now, Daryl. It's all fine. I think same as Chris, actually. I when I do go for a walk, if I have a break, we live not far from a river, and I quite often just go and take the dog maybe for a quick loop, but go and stand on the bridge and just having that. Listen to the water, and actually, yeah, I probably do the 5 things you see, 5 things you hear, etc., without realizing it. But actually, yeah, that really grounds me, because I'm like, it's just, yeah, you can just feel like you can breathe. There's a little bench not far as well that you can go and sit on if you want to, and it's lovely. It's only a 3-minute walk from our house, but yeah, very lucky to have that just outside the door, actually.
Yeah.
And very well. I'm lucky.
A good de-stressor, isn't it? Lorna said, I don't know if anybody said that yet, but Lorna said a good tip is to be able to recognize when you're stressed and to change something or do something differently before it's too late.
Yeah.
We all know people that have buckled under the pressure, and we've lost people in our profession, and I think we just in ourselves we need to recognize when we are getting to breaking point and reach out to people. I just said reach out, I hate that word. Like communicate with people. See, look, it's infiltrating.
If you was reaching out, or whether you were strangling someone, like you were like that. Yeah. Oh no, you were hugging, that's fine. Oh, dear.
And there's also a thing of, apparently, obviously forest bathing is a thing where people go in a forest and they look at the trees and it makes them feel better. But there's been research that shows even if just having a picture on your desktop of a forest will make you feel better and calmer. So if you can't go out, you can just look at a picture, because we can't always go out in the
Yeah,
Right.
the green.
yeah.
That's a great idea. So yeah, pictures and more imagery. That's a good idea.
Also, doing things that are a bit new and out of your comfort zone. So I did paddleboarding with Pippa a couple of weekends ago for a charity event. But
Yeah.
it happened to be beautiful weather, bright blue sky, really warm, and we at one point just stopped paddling and just laid back on our paddle boards, connected both together, and then just laid there and floated down the river looking at the trees. But that was quite a good stress reliever.
Oh,
Mine, I
Sarah says Gmail has a forest background. There we go.
Oh, okay. I'll put that on. I think what Lorna said about recognizing it, I've always suffered with neck tension if I get stressed, which then radiates into like a headache. And then I know that's like, you're like, oh, this isn't right, which is why I probably carry on the classes I do, because that eliminates it a little bit. And I know sitting can also do that, but that's something that I've learned over the years is a sign of something that I need to do something about. But yeah, we've all got a little things we have to contend with. But yeah, that's mine. Mhm.
I went fencing last night.
How did you?
That's quite good.
I can imagine.
I got beaten on all the bouts I did, but it doesn't make any difference. It's still funny and good fun and very, very knackering.
Can imagine that's a great stress reliever, because you're a bit like down.
Stabbing people.
Yeah, you're kind of stabbing people and imagining there are people. Yeah.
Well, I've been doing it for years and I'm still crap, but it's still fun. And there are loads of people there the same as me. And we just have a good time. But it puts you right out of the normal physical things you would ever do in normal life.
Yeah.
And you go above and beyond. Yeah.
And actually, when you're concentrating on something like that, the thoughts of work and the stress of work, they can't get into your brain because you're really concentrating on that. And I find that, I find that with all my things, it's the
like
only
all
time
the
I
stuff
really
you
get
do. Yeah, I was just about to say it's like what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, Chris is not liking the water.
Not like it. Did you see that you wouldn't be able to stand up, Chris? Did you say? I can. Hang on, I haven't got the chat up. Oh yeah.
Well, I was mostly thinking. I've got an inflatable kayak, and I find that same as Joe with paddleboarding. It's just really therapeutic, just sort of drifting along.
They look quite good, those kayaks. We saw a few of those, and there's ones you can get where 2 or 3 can go in it. So you can get your family in there. And they even had some dogs as well, and they had little jackets of handles, so you could lift the dog up and put it in there.
Yeah,
they look quite good.
It's like everyone on the water has got a dog.
Yeah.
They're really good. Although I mostly paddle on the local canal, and I definitely wouldn't recommend standing up in it.
Well, I did wonder about that when we were doing ours, but thankfully I didn't fall in. God knows how, but yeah.
But we were in the river though. We did ours on the river, so that's all right. Canal's dodgy as yeah. Oh, lovely. Sarah's got 2 and a dog kayak. Yeah, well, we'd like some pictures. That'll de-stress us all.
Yeah.
I've just had someone knock on the window asking if I'm in a meeting.
See little sign
about a dog and a kayak.
Yeah, just like you can see through the window I'm in a meeting. Stressful, no, like.
Right, I'm going to stop recording, I think, so we can talk for the last couple of minutes. That's probably the best thing to do. So yeah, I will stop recording now.
Oh, playing to change YouTube videos. Let's get whatever that is, Chris.
Oh, okay.
What is it? And if it's good, we'll stick it on the.
Playing for Change is a charity that does music all around the world, and they use loads of famous folks, singers and musicians, but they're little snippets. Everybody plays the tune, but they're playing it from all different parts of the world. And there's amazing musicians. There's always some incredible songs. It's beautiful the way they shoot it. The musicians are amazing. There's all kinds of instruments that you wouldn't ever normally see, and it's just so uplifting. It's really worth it to have a go at it and
definitely try that.
They're brilliant.
And I think that's a good point about. Sorry, Hannah. I think that's a good point about finding the thing that does it for you. Because obviously squash is good for Daryl. Me stupidly climbing up mountains is quite good for me. Music is good for you. Water is good for other people. So it's about finding that thing.
Running and
Yeah, because what works for one person won't work for the next necessarily. So yeah, it's all about that, isn't it?
Mm.
But okay, I will stop recording now.